Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to Year 11 students if you're in the room, and to all their parents and carers as well. I'm Miss Cortizo, so I'm one of the deputy head teachers at the school, and I stay with Year 11. So Mr. Brixey has moved up through the school with this year group, and then when our Year 11s last year left, and Year 10s essentially became ours. They become our Year 11s. So that's what I do each year. I'm in charge of Year 11 outcomes, exams, prom, all of that kind of stuff. So really exciting year. I must admit that whilst I do love this role, I'm particularly excited to do it with your students year group, because I joined when they joined. So it's kind of nice to have seen them through my first year group, if you like, that have been here as long as I have. I feel like I'm graduating with them. So just a bit of housekeeping from me, and then I'll hand over to Mr. Brixey. I hopefully have been able to catch most of you at the door. So there's a really important QR code sheet, lots of links to lots of lovely learning materials online. So do browse those later. And I'm going to reference a couple of bits, actually, if I might, that I think are really key. Also, we are recording. So all of this, slides plus the recording, will be available online afterwards. So don't feel you have to take notes or get everything down. It will all be available afterwards. So, as I said, I'm just going to alight upon a couple of key documents. So, as I said, I've been here 5 years, but I've been teaching for 22 years. And I felt after my 20th year, so 2 years ago, my eldest daughter was in Year 11. I have now got another daughter in Year 11. So I'm literally in this with you, not at this school, I might add. But it wasn't until I'd done it from the other side, as a parent, that I really feel I got a new and really important perspective on how demanding a year it is. It's a really exciting year, and it is going to fly. We're basically talking about 2 terms, but it is a challenging one. And I feel like I kind of went into that thinking, I've got this absolutely licked. I've done it for 20 years, but it's so different when it's your own child. So part of what I've tried to bring into my role is to think about what it is that you need to support them and how we can support you in supporting them, and so that we can really work together. So I must confess that I did steal this format of document from where my child was at school, because I received it as a parent and thought, wow, that's so useful. So this is something we've already had. It's a Year 11 information booklet. In here is lots of information about kind of navigating the year, but not too much of that. It tells you a little bit about the team around the child, me, Mr. Brixey, and our team of expert Year 11 tutors. Of course, your child is now in a Year 11 only tutor group. Those tutors stay with Year 11 like I stay with Year 11, because it's quite a bespoke format and programme that we want people to be kind of trained and expert in. So we've got a really strong team, but what this does is it tells you about all of the mocks. We've basically written and planned all of when they're going to be happening, the days, and really importantly, by subject here at the back, what you need to do to be ready and prepare for them. This is really helpful for you to have at home. It is great to have in hard copy, but it is also available online. It's the first QR code here, because actually there are lots of links within that are super handy as well. So actually having one to hand is good, but having the online version as well for its interactivity is probably useful. So that's something we'd already brought in, but new for this year, actually, is a key document within there for each subject. We have a lovely event later on in the year. I hope you'll be able to join us after the second set of mocks. And we do a little mock kind of envelope opening. You'll come and you'll see your child's second set of mocks. You'll open them with them, kind of summer style. They also get their hoodies, and it's a celebratory event, and we talk about revision. And I sat there last year, and I sort of imagined sort of a count in my head, and we have English and maths and science, and we talk about how to revise and all the documents that we give you. And I felt a little bit with that parent perspective on that it was quite overwhelming, and through our real desire to help, actually we were making it quite challenging for yourselves and children to navigate. And so what we've done for this year is that each subject, so if you're doing art, there is just one now art page. It's called a launch pad. There's one for science, there's one for history. And yes, within that, it will launch you off to lots of other places, websites suggested, but there is now just one place for every subject, so that if you're in any doubt about where to go, check this, and it's the launch pad for each subject. As I said, I'm really trying to bring that parental experience in to help you, help us, help them. Thank you very much.
All right, evening everybody. It's lovely to see so many people that I've met or have come to these talks before or I teach, and to be, I guess, at not an end, but kind of the beginning of a busy bit of work, but also really an exciting time for all of us as we go into year 11. Also, the last time I did this talk half an hour ago, the computer broke halfway through, so I'm a little bit more nervous than I sometimes am when I'm doing these presentations. This bit, now this is good because I didn't press the wrong button here, so Miss Cortizo would have said this stuff. This is the key things. If there's a fire, go out to the plaza. All the slides will be available afterwards. There's quite a few of my slides I'm going to skip through quite quick, not because they're not useful, just because there's a lot of words and me just reading them out to you won't be particularly useful. And yes, stay in those places, but I'm guessing lots of you have already seen your tutors, so you're here and then going out the front. This slide, if you've been to these presentations before, you'll have seen the next 3 slides. This one about working together, I think becomes even more critical this year. And probably if you stay with us the next 2 years afterwards in sixth form, particularly as the students, young people, children get older, and are very much that kind of 3-way working together bit is really important. I think for the students in the room, we'll talk in a minute about revision plans and revision and schedules. It's your thing, like you've got to own that. And one of, I think, the key ways you can deal with the kind of stress and anxiety and like pressure of year 11 is you own your schedule. And if you can show your parents that you're doing that, that helps them relax. And then they can back off a bit, and then you probably relax a little bit more, and then everything goes a bit better. I think if you have a plan, it's much easier to do that. And it's quite hard as a parent, again, I'm speaking to the young people here, it's quite hard as a parent to back off because you really care. So you really, really want your children to do well. So you want to put pressure on. So for the young people in here, have a plan. That really just helps out. I'm also speaking, I have sons and they're the same age as your children. And yeah, so I'm perhaps there's some hypocrisy in some of these slides about how you should say things that we'll get to later. So working together, really important. That's part of the school ethos of opportunity and community, and really, really important as we go through year 11 will be hopefully, obviously, work hard, but also really important that we remember to be kind both to each other and to ourselves, I think, probably all of us, because at points in this year that will be important. So the next bit of the presentation really is about a kind of national message around some very important stuff to do with attendance. So there's some statistics here that basically say if you want to get really good grades, probably the best thing you could do is come to school, which seems kind of an obvious message, but really quite small amount of days missed of learning make quite a massive difference in terms of performance. So they think about 10 days of illness can equate to quite a significant impact in terms of like grade 5s there. So would really urge you, again, all of you like students and parents, if you're a bit unsure about whether you're ill enough to be in school, come to school and stay in school. And then in school, really, really important to be on time, because those first 10 minutes of lessons are often about like consolidation of knowledge, like recap, revision stuff, and be in lessons. So the more you can get that right, the better. This graph is pretty stark. So this is grades versus attendance. And essentially you can see there that not going to school gets no grades, and going to school lots tends to mean, not always, but tends to mean that people do really well. So, I mean, you're all here, so good job there. But being in the building makes a really big difference. And then when you're in the building, being in the lessons is really, really key. That's the attendance bit. Our priorities for year 11, I've used this slide with the students in assemblies, really, are these things. Firstly, best GCSE results for each individual. Future plans, so lots of what we're doing this year is hearing from colleges. You'll be starting to go to open days. And I think having those plans is really important in both motivation and also a sense of, well, what are best GCSE results? They're probably the results that open the next lot of doors. So working out what the next lot of doors are, and I don't think that means like mapping out your whole life, but knowing a little bit what the next steps are, or what the next steps options are, next options are, is important. And then I think year 11 is a pretty special year. You know, we're not going to be here again. Having some things to remember about either little things. Funny, I saw my friends from school a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about where we stood and had lunch. You know, and we're really old. So the things like that about school you remember, and then big things obviously like proms and enrichment days and so forth will be important too. Results, some of those memories will have hard bits to them maybe, but that's part of how we move forward. So that's what we're about. In terms of best grades and what they mean, there probably is some jargon around that. So the number system, I would imagine you're all relatively familiar with, but things are worth bearing in mind. Like a grade 1 is a grade, that is a GCSE grade, that is a passing grade in many senses. Often people will talk about 4 being a pass, and it is, so that will access quite a lot of next levels of qualification. And then most places will talk about 5 being a good pass, which is a slightly confusing term, but the 5 is the grade that often unlocks most level 3 qualifications, whether they're like academic A levels or other forms of level 3 qualification that come later at colleges. And then the very top grades there, those 8s and 9s, they're also a thing that probably for if I talk to parents like our generation, they didn't exist then, and they don't really equate to A stars. Like, they're better than A stars. So there is something about 9s we have to be a bit careful with, I think. Like, they're super exceptional, but they're also probably not something we should be saying, like, you've got to like go for that, because it's so comparative with other people. It really is just like the top 10% of the country. So some of your children will get lots of them, but there's some kind of traps there about comparing to other people that I think are worth bearing in mind as well. And then level 2 and level 3 qualifications you might hear about in institutions. Level 2 is like kind of a GCSE equivalent level, and level 3 is like A level, but lots of vocational qualifications will be at that level. So some of you, in fact, some of the conversation I've had tonight about, well, these grades would allow them to do this at level 2, these grades would allow them to do it at level 3. So for lots of vocational pathways, again, 4s and 5s will unlock the higher level of that qualification, which can be really powerful, and also put you in like a kind of slightly faster track to some of those qualifications. Dates-wise, this slide is one, again, I won't talk through. There's a version of it in the booklet, which if you came in late, grab one of those on your way out as well. The key thing, I suppose, I said to the students about this slide is it's a super short year. There's a real sense of urgency here. And you can see on there I've put 1st of September, start preparing for mocks. The mocks are just after half term. So they're about 5 weeks now, I think. That's soon. And I think the students should be preparing now. And I guess that feeds, you can see on their prom at the end, which we'll launch on Friday with the students in assembly, and you'll get a letter about that following that. And in amongst that, there's lots of other exams, like food practicals, NEAs, languages exams, art exams, which will come at different points in time. Having a sense of that schedule, I think, is a really important thing as a parent, like to plan when you're busy as a family and when you're not busy as a family, knowing when the points of stress are, just to be able to kind of predict that and therefore be aware of how the young people might be feeling, I think is quite important. So having that schedule and kind of building your family's year, not totally around that, but I think thinking about even simple things like holidays at points when your children might be really wanting to work then, or might need to, that can be quite hard for young people who aren't used to having control of schedules. So I think helping them buy into that is important. And this is that diagram essentially as a kind of flow chart to give you a sense that really the rhythm is prepare, do tests, get feedback, prepare, do tests, get feedback. I mean, that kind of is it. The key junctions here are, so that results day with the envelope, that is an assembly. The students get the envelope with the first set of mock results in that. The real key point there will be what can they learn from that point about how well they prepared, feeding into kind of Christmas time and the February mocks, preparation for those. And then we have that 18th of March is the event, I think Ms. Cortizo mentioned, where parents come in, you open the envelopes with your children here, we give out the hoodies then, the students then wear the hoodies for the rest of their time here, and I guess that's the final kind of run into the summer exams, into the GCSEs, and in the middle there, the Go 8 pictures, because we have our enrichment day then is very much a kind of, well, it's fun, I guess. We go to an outdoor activity centre in Shoreham and just try and kind of relax a bit, and probably again that feeds into that making memories piece of doing some fun stuff with their friends really, which is important. Some of you want to know about end dates. The end dates are all in here. And if you're, again, like booking holidays and stuff, that obviously, well, perhaps not obviously, some of you might have realised this is like a long summer. The advantage of that being short is, and if you're in year 11, there's a long summer coming up if you, when you get to the end of all this. The other messages I've given to the students then around like what we're doing now are about getting the basics right and planning forward. So the first bit we said at the start of term was, to be successful, we've really got to do some super simple things and do them all the time. So these are hopefully self-evident, but being on time, having the correct stuff, doing your work and being kind to each other is really important. And I think as parents, you can make a massive difference there. It's still, none of the children are too old for you to be making sure they've got a pen every day, making sure they've got all the right stuff and that they turn up on time. That's really powerful. Like often the first bits of lessons are the most critical for learning. So getting those bits right. Any late marks you see or like class charge points for lateness, then those are really things that people have got to be, the kids got to be getting right. So that we said, this stuff I'm not going to talk through. This is some quite specific stuff to do with maths, English and science about how to start well. Those subjects are obviously really critical, like gateway subjects for everyone. So really getting that right. The move to Dr. Frost, you may have realised, like off of Sparks, is key in maths. Learning quotes in English is really, really critical and lots of practice there. And then I think the other thing I've said to the students that I think you could be doing with them now is starting to prepare for Mock 1. So the booklet references when the mocks are and what's in them. The tutors I know have talked to some of you about that, and the tutors have all had Year 11 forms for several years, so have been doing mock preparation with their tutor groups, are really experienced at supporting that. I think having a plan is absolutely critical, and I think a really granular plan is helpful. So what I mean by that is having like revise chemistry 30th of October 4:30 till 5:30, and ideally the unit in there would be really, really good. And then I guess making sure you're doing the right things. One of the things the students do give us feedback on how they've prepared for previous tests, and our year group actually did amazing in the RS GCSE, like probably the best set of results we've had as a school for a long time. But the thing they reported they needed to do more of was self-testing, like testing themselves and doing past papers. And as we get towards ends of courses, that becomes even more critical. There's a real danger you can spend a lot of time doing something that's actually not that useful. So doing things that really work is important. And my favourite trick at the moment for making schedules and testing yourself is to use AI. So, and I think this will be what I'm doing as a parent with my son who's a little bit lazy, is basically putting into AI, I've got mock exams, and then being really super specific. I've got mock exams, this date, these are the subjects, these are the exam boards, you could even use this, go, these are the topics, and it will give you things like, this is your checklist, this is your revision load. The first round of this, I thought, oh, crikey, that's a bit full on. So I said, take an hour off per day. Put in when you have tea, put in when you do ballet or football or dancing or clean out your horse or whatever. Put all that in so you make sure you're doing all that, and it will give you schedules that look like that. You can get it to colour code, PDFs, all of that. So it's really good, because there's also a danger you can spend 6 hours making a schedule with millions of like highlighters and whiteboards and have prepared not at all for your mock exams. Whereas in 15 minutes, I think with ChatGPT, you can make a schedule. And then the final thing, this is from my Year 11 history lesson today. I think if you're struggling, past papers, there's loads online, there's loads of links in this and in the Launchpad. But if you think, actually, I've just done, or I don't know, my son or daughter has just done half an hour's revision, I know they need to be self-testing, you just go ChatGPT, edit this one, Edexcel, history, industrial medicine, 20-question, multiple-choice quiz, go, and it gives you some really, I wouldn't be using this for like long answers really, but for like short, just want to test myself, really, really good mechanism. So those are my kind of tips, and I would be, if you haven't got a revision schedule for the MOTS, I'd go home today, tomorrow I'd make one, and then follow it along. And when I say I'd go home and make one, I'm really talking to students there. I think the balance as a parent is probably you can't really do that. I think you've got to work with your children for them to do that. They've got to own that, and that's about kind of future planning, I think. Lots will happen with rewards this year. So Year 11 have a kind of individualised rewards programme that we'll kind of gradually implement across the year, including quite a big lot of things that will come just after the first lot of mock exams that was really successful last year, and we're just starting to do with them alongside the revamped Weald rewards programme across the whole school. This perhaps talks to what I was just saying. So these are again, there's probably some hypocrisy here, things that I think parents can do that really make a difference. So I think there is a bit of still, they're getting older, but they still need some of that stuff they probably needed when they were like 4, around routine and stability and care and all of those things we do as parents. It's their thing, so they also need to make their plans and their goals and do that themselves. And that's what I'll be saying here is exactly, I mean, I think I said to a few people here, if you want to support your parents to back off, you've got to have a plan, and you've got to be doing it, and you've got to be working hard. And then I think that was a very powerful phrase about the comparison being the thief of happiness. That, like, exams are brutal. They compare your child to every other child in the country, and all of us can't escape like how that might make us feel. So you've got to just be being the parent of your kid, I think. Which is super hard. That article from the BBC is really good. It's a couple of years old now, but it's an educational psychologist basically doing things you shouldn't say to a teenager during GCSEs and things that are good to say. There's lots of really, like, again, if I think about it as a dad, there's lots in there where you might think, well, crikey, I do say that, which are interesting, but with the kind of the evidence base behind it is good. And then the action, your potential webinars are there. You can access those from home. They're basically about how to study and how the teenage mind works. So they're really interesting and really supportive. In terms of lasting memories and future plans, so I've talked about these. The sixth form taster day is coming up. Really good to attend and really good to go to a range of places, and very helpful in terms of performance as well. Knowing your goals is really important. Results days are in August. That's check holidays. So booking a holiday, holidays are tricky, but having your holiday on results day can be really stressful. You may not be able to avoid it, but particularly if things don't go well and you've got to talk to sixth form providers, that might be something to be aware of. And the prom, as I said, that will be launched this week. Yeah, good. Well, that went better than the last one. There's some, if you want to talk to us, we'll be here. E-Block canteen for refreshments if you want it. You know the places you need to be. We didn't have a fire. Good. Thank you, everyone.